17 years. I spent 8 years before that of it, almost every one. The things on the boilers and that, they've been a problem since 2000. You know, they were a problem. I had 3 daughters go to Riverside here, 12 years, and they all went on to college and very good careers here. But there was severe issues in the late 99s and 2000 that have not really been addressed in that time. So it's not a year-by-year thing. I think something that we're not looking at is, so we're going on about how everything's supposed to be done year to year, but where's Riverside sat in relation to the other districts in Spokane County? And I was a board chair after Ken talked about the John McCoy thing. I was the board chair on the 2 levies after we got rid of Superintendent Wilson. And we had a lot of bond debt when we were trying to pass those levies. And we worked very hard to get that bond debt off the books. So part of the problem, we're talking about taxes, and I can tell you my tax rate, assessed valuation, just went up 87% in the last 3 years. So that gets smacked hard with that. Now, I'll tell you right now, I have all those concerns. I voted for the bond. I followed things that Ken's done, and I think he's done a marvelous job. The board, I never sat on the board. I was, in various committees. I was on the budget committee, who had a bunch of fact-finding, and it's a thankless position. And there's just not been enough money in the budgetary process to fix all of that. Now, in your house, you wait for something to break down, or do you try to do preventive maintenance and keep it, year by year? I think that Riverside has been digging out of a hole since 2000, and I applaud for going. The mill rates on a levy, a levy has to be, and a bond, they have to be written according to state law. And, your evaluations and what you run those monies on, and then the mill rates, they adjust. They don't stay at the same time. And that's what the state does. But I just wanted to say that I think we're, to sit in this, and we all know that the taxes, I'm retired or close to retired like everybody else, and yeah, nobody likes to spend the money, but on I just feel like maybe we should be looking ahead rather than back and coming up with solutions instead of my 2 cents.
I think that's what we're all doing right now, is by looking at our mistakes, things that were done in the past or made, as a way of forward positively. That's what we're doing.
Boiler's been a problem for 24 years. shouldn't be,
Yes, I mean,
working on that. I don't care, I'm not gonna
it's been
change
worked on.
anything,
I mean,
it's great that we have the addition. That's great, or the renovation. I think as a concerned taxpayer, whose home value increased way more than I would have ever expected or wanted or anything. Also, I don't know, maybe this will help you guys. Did you guys research at all? I'm not saying you should have, I'm curious. How many of the voters were victims of the fire? I think the fire probably harmed this year a lot. I didn't lose my home, but I lost all my property. I lost everything. I lost farms, I lost stuff. So to then come into this group of people who have lost things in the fire, bad timing, I think. I think that's part of the problem. I'm not saying for or against. No one needs to know how anyone voted, but that's probably a big factor, is the fire. Because I'm sure most of those people were part of the Riverside community, weren't they? I mean,
Yeah,
I'm curious myself, how many of your voters might have been those people who, oh my gosh, we've been hit with everything right now, and now this, not understanding, not knowing, just thinking, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have this other big debt. So maybe, looking into how many of them were in that area, might tell you why, maybe that's why it didn't pass. Maybe this other 10-15% who voted this year were these people who never voted, didn't care, and now they're like, man, this is affecting me. Because I've been hit with this, and this. Because I know how they're feeling. I mean, I'm in the middle of the fire. I know my neighbors and friends lost everything. I was at the community meetings where people got up and walked out and they're mad because they're told, you have to pay for a logger to come in, you have to pay for funds. And it's like, people are this filled with what they have to do, for them to be asked to spend money on this. Maybe it's something they would have voted positively for. It's timing. So as far as doing it again in a year, I'm thinking the presidential election will be done, right? The fire victims will know where they're standing. Maybe we'll have to do it. I'm not against it. I'm not against making the things nice. I mean, we all want to be proud of the school that our children are in. I just think the timing might have been off.
mind if I just really quickly?
Can you speak to what is involved with the HVAC system? What are we talking about in that 20-some million? Are we going to start over from new? Do we already have a structure for the HVAC, and we're just going to upgrade components? How are we getting to that number? I mean, without detail, of course, but I think that a lot of people wonder how we're really arriving at some of the numbers, more specifically, and is it, is it a need for we want buildings that we really don't need? Are we also wanting HVAC upgrades that we think are pretty cool, but that we don't need? Because it boils down to perspective. The way people live their own lives and budget their own money, it affects the way they think about the way the school is, right? So I could look at it and say, well, when I need something, I go without something, if that's what it boils down to. And it's a necessity.
Yeah, I'll answer yours, and then I'll talk to Carol's question too. So during that facilities audit called a study and survey, so it's best practice. I think even John, you probably agree with this. Best practice to have a long-range facilities plan. You can. The best districts, paying out. How are we going to address this over time? And so we felt the need to have one because we didn't have one. And so we developed it. Now, part of that is you bring these people from industry in, and you have to go through a bid process, and you get a grant that pays for an architect that comes in and does this study and survey. So we went with NAC Architects, and they did the process. So they do their state systems. Yeah, you have to use rubrics, things like that. So we don't have the expertise. Now, even though we're proud to have an HVAC guy, actually. I mean, because a lot of times you get generalists in school, right? Because they can make more money if you go into industry. So you get handymen or handywomen. So
we do have an HVAC specialist, so we knew there were issues, we had an outside expert come in, we did get more than one opinion. So and from that, it was like what you're saying, Rick, you get that number, you're like 21 or 21, 22, what? You know, it's like, are you kidding me? I mean, and then even in the town halls, everybody's like, what? HVAC 21, 22 million? So I think that's part of the experience. We did try to be straight up with people about the breakdown. So like there's a spreadsheet that we sent out a ton of times. It has more, I don't remember all the language, but it kind of breaks down the heating and cooling systems and what each the parts are that go with that. I don't think it was a Cadillac. I think it was more of just a regular, probably wasn't the cheapest, but it was probably middle of the road. But yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, that's one of the challenges that we have, right? Is anybody who's doing HVAC in their home or doing it in schools, it's kind of one of the most expensive things going on right now. So I think we'd have to, like, for example, if we revisit it, like re-look at everything, it might be good to bring in a bunch of construction people from Riverside, you know, and have them, we probably could have done that earlier. But even at the town hall, we had a couple people who do HVAC for a living, who live in Riverside and have kids in the schools. That might be a good move, is come in, bring them in, and actually look at it and say, okay, were these guys from the outside industry right? You know, could we do it less expensively? You know, is it too fancy? I think that's probably part of the process we should do.
I think it needs to be drilled down on a lot before we.
Yeah.
Maybe we need 32 million. I just know how it works, and those numbers really get thrown around for years. You know, accountability, trying to get the best. You know, we had active contractors look at the assessment. Yeah. Or is that not feasible at this point? Probably don't want to re-estimate. Yeah, but anyway.
That's a good question. With Carol, I think you bring up a really good point, and I would tell you it was a struggle to figure that out, because after the 2-year study, the Facilities Advisory Committee made a recommendation in June of last year to run a bond. The board was studying it through the summer, got to end of August, and I think Bob and Tommy at the time had been liaisons to the Facilities Advisory Committee, so they were familiar with keeping the board up to speed. And it got to the date of the board meeting that they were going to make a decision, and a week before the fire happened. And so the board decided to pause, and obviously very concerning. You know, it's like, wow, that's basic needs first, address some of those issues, and then we had to kind of re-engage. And I think from the experience, what we talked a lot about is there were mixed feelings. There were some that exactly what you said. Hey, this is horrible time. And it's going to come across rude that you're doing it. And then on the
I
flip,
don't think it comes across rude. I just think people are at the point where I can't take anymore.
yeah, I think
And
that's part of
it's
it.
not a reflection on what you were trying to get. It's not a reflection on that. It is between the economy and the fire. You're at the point where, no, I can't do anymore. Like, I bet none of them even looked into it, because you're trying to get your home rebuilt. You're trying to get your land logged. You're trying to get the logging mess cleaned up. You're trying to get power to your home. So to say, you know, like, no one opposed or whatever he was saying, you guys didn't find someone who wanted, maybe someone didn't have time, like,
Yeah.
it's not their first priority. Their priority is their home and their family and getting back on their feet.
Yeah.
Having an automobile to drive because it went up in flames. So I'm not saying these people were against doing this. I think the time that it came out, even if you planned ahead, it still came out at I
Yeah.
think, a very bad time. Not on purpose of you, but of what happened. The fire happened.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe the fire had no influence on it. That's
No,
what
I
I'm
think-
saying. Do we know who the people are that voted for or against?
Well, and we did, you know, we had a lot of engagement with the families impacted, the leadership of the recovery groups, and talking about that. And there was definitely some who felt like horrible timing. There were others that felt like, that we still move forward. So it kind of depended, but the key was that talk to people impacted by the fire, you know, the families with the 64 kids in our school, you know, and we did do that. And that's why it was delayed a little while, but it was a really brutal decision. And I can just tell you, it didn't help. No doubt about it. You're exactly right. How would that help? I mean, I don't think it would. But that's just my opinion.
You know, I think it's a multifaceted issue. When I first saw that ballot, you've got to be some kind of a nuclear physicist to figure out what it means. And I think most people don't want a kabuki dance. They want to know, how much are my taxes going to go up? What is this going to cost me in plain, simple? I don't want to hear about a mill. I don't want to hear about what this is. I want to hear about what is the bottom line for me. And I took a lot of economic classes in college. And if you don't understand it, don't vote for it. Don't buy it. I think the second issue was definitely economics. And I'll give you just a little bit of history, and I don't mean to be redundant. I farm. We went through COVID, and I get these government people coming in saying, Phil, we just bought a new mattresses last year for all our farm workers. They go, you get to do it again because we went through COVID. So these mattresses that you bought for all your farm workers, they're gone. You get to do it again. And after going through this and spending tens of thousands of dollars, and this may sound insensitive, you think I care about the air conditioning? I really don't. And I look at every area of government, and unfortunately, you guys get tossed into it. I see waste everywhere. And I know it's very unfair to put people in the same scenario as our federal government, but I think you get tossed into that. They just seem to have an insatiable appetite for money, and there's never enough. And I think you guys get, and then you look at the teachers, and maybe there's some envy in this too. They're all signatory to collective bargaining. You couldn't get rid of them if you wanted to. They've got the finest health care, the finest pension, and I'm looking at my budget item. My property taxes are the highest item in my budget. And I think that plays a role. And there may be some jealousy in there, but I think probably everybody in this room can get fired because if somebody doesn't like the way they part their hair. And I just think it's a multifaceted issue that hit at the wrong time, and then you throw in the devastation this community had been with in August. Not a good deal. And honestly, I think you're going to face a very difficult time passing these things in the future, because I think people are economically strapped. It's not that they don't care about it. It's not that they don't want to support you. But they're struggling. They're struggling.
I agree with him. I don't think anyone's against what you want to do. I think we all want to support our school. We want to support everything that make it better for our kids. But we can't. And I don't consider myself one of the poorer people in the community. And I'm struggling. I work 2 jobs and my husband works. We're trying to retire. We can't. So, not that we're not for it, and I don't have an answer to how you raise the money, but I think that's why things don't pass. I think that's why you didn't get it. You can't. And to drive to work, you gotta fill your car. To buy a car. I don't know if anyone's tried to buy a car recently, but it's what most people paid for their houses years ago. And it's just hard. And I think that's the whole problem is hard. We are in a lower income community. For the most part, and I think we have to admit that, and I just think people don't have the money. People have been contemplating moving out of the state because since we moved out here from Stevenson County, moved out here, our mortgage has gone up about $700 just because of taxes in 5 years. And how do you stand having going up $700 extra a month just because of taxes? And that's not having the farm tax. If the farm would have tax, it would have gone up even more. And we contemplated just moving out of Washington altogether, going to Idaho. Not from Idaho. Living here. It's ridiculous. It's sad because I love it here. They don't want to leave. But, I'm now homeschooling one of my kids because I had to take him out of Riverside because he wasn't getting what he needed through the teaching. He was first of all, he wasn't being taught properly. He was in an IEP. He'd come home with his homework and had no clue how to do it. And I said, well, why don't we taught this today? He said, all the kids were running around the classroom today, and the teacher just went and decided to sit down, and he just said he's not going to teach us today. That happened on multiple occasions. And with the student in the ISP, I can tell you I talked to you about her dropping out of the ninth grade algebra. One day she went to the algebra to them, and oh, I forgot about you guys today. I didn't plan for you guys today. Learn this, and this is what you're supposed to do this week. My daughter dropped out of ninth grade algebra because she doesn't know how to teach herself algebra. So another reason, yeah, if I had money, I'd like to pay, but then I think of all these things. Yeah. And I think if you guys talk to some of your foreign exchange students, and I only know this because I have one, they think the education here is a joke. And I don't mean Riverside, because they're only the students who are here at Riverside. Maybe they mean everywhere. But a lot of them have to go back and do some of this year over again because the education here, I'm not saying Riverside, is that much lower than that. And that's sad to me. It's just like, oh my God, like trying to, you have an exchange student and you're trying to boost and show them what America's like and how great it is. And the whole time you're like, I'm sorry, this is I'm sorry. I think you guys should sit down and talk to the exchange students sometime. Because they bring in a lot. Just having hearing what her friends have said, it's a joke for them to do this. They really